Right. In this video, we're talking about the unique billing behaviors and common mistakes with billing that are seen with remote therapeutic monitoring. So it's important to recognize that an entire month goes by and all of the activity that happens in that month is accumulated. And then once the month is closed out, there are RTM CPT codes that are now eligible to be billed. So it's based on a month of activity. It does not represent a visit. And so that's probably the most unique thing about this is all other CPT codes are representing a data service. This represents a month of service. Um, Unfortunately, when we submit these codes, we still have to pick a data service. Even though that data service technically is the entire month, right now the EMRs and the insurance companies do not have a way to identify that it's a month of time that's gone by. So that's going to cause some confusion, not only for you, but also the patient. Um, Number two, there's no copay. So these do not represent a visit, so there's no copay. However, there is, if a patient has a deductible or co-insurance, these the dollar amount for these CPT codes would go towards those deductible or co-insurance. And this does not count as a visit, which means it does not count against your visit counts, your authorization, visit amounts, or documentation alarms. And also, it does not require a traditional daily note or a SOAP note to complete in order to then submit these codes for reimbursement. One of the biggest, I think, confusing elements of this is there's a reimbursement time delay since we have to wait till a month is over. And so when the codes are submitted at the end of each month, representing all the activity that occurred in that month, we have to then pick an arbitrary date of service. I recommend picking the first Saturday of that next month because if you pick a day that's during a weekday and that patient is being seen still, and then that happens to be on the same day, one of those two is going to get denied as a duplicate claim submission. So I recommend picking a date of service that's the first Saturday of the month. You can do whatever you want, but recognizing that's why. And so, but that data service that you pick is arbitrary and it doesn't actually represent a true data service when the patient was seen in the clinic. And so that's a problem because that's going to show up on the patient's explanation of benefits and confuse the patient, which is natural, right? It's naturally confusing. So I think the best practice here is to educate the patient ahead of time, but also make sure that your staff, your biller particularly, where phone calls go, are well versed in understanding and how to have that conversation with the patient. Acknowledging you're right, it's not a data service. It's showing up on your EOB. It represents an entire month of the mobile application you were given for your home exercise program. And so that's an important thing to be aware of. Now, after the patient completes in-clinic visits and when monitoring continues, let's say for a month or two after the person had their last visit, that's fine. That's actually beneficial for the patient. But then again, that those charges will be submitted after the patient is, after that month. And so the patient might get an EOB 60 days later showing that they have charges that represent a visit date that wasn't actually a visit date. And so that's really important to be aware of. So when you submit some submission recommendations that I see commonly happen that are mistakes, particularly the 98977 and the 9876, I believe, the two monthly device supply codes, they need to have 30 days in between submissions. So they represent activity, the patient having the device for 30 days, but then it resets each 30 days. So there has to be a 30-day in between submissions. So if we pick the first Saturday of each month, then you need to make sure that the next submission date is 30 days in between the last one. Otherwise, you will get denials. And so at the month's end, submit with the data service of the first Saturday to avoid duplicate claims um, if the patient is still being seen in the clinic. The next submission date for 98977, again, will be 30-day gap. And so it's really important to recognize that Medicare has very clear rules that we're talking about right now, but the commercial payers, they follow the rules for the most part, but sometimes they're a little bit confused on what those original rules are. So I would highly recommend that before you submit or perform any remote monitoring for a commercial payer patient, that you contact that payer to discuss their policies and procedures.